Well, here we are on a Tuesday, the last day of 2024. It is Longshore and McKnight, presented by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. And Barry, I was thinking this morning, in all of the days we have broadcast a program together via
many days. Yes.
Many days, either via this media or another one in the past. How many days have we broadcast on a game day for either Alabama, Auburn, or Troy in football?
For Troy, a few times, because they do play a couple of Thursday games. For Auburn, a couple of times, because they'll play a Thursday game here or there. Alabama ain't never playing a Thursday game, but they're playing on a Tuesday. So get this. I mean, depending on your viewing habits, whether you're viewing us as we are on our live show at 7 o'clock in the morning, like Range Pro is, or whether you're watching it later on in the morning. How about this? How about Longshore and McKnight? Then the Crimson Tide pregame show. Roger Hoover. I'm thinking maybe Tyler Watts or somebody.
Kirk McNair making an appearance, maybe, or that's something else.
I don't know, but they, and then they'll bring you in to the ReliaQuest Bowl from Tampa, Florida. Alabama versus Michigan later on this morning at 11 o'clock.
Love it. Yeah.
How about that? Yeah.
Yeah. It has been rare in the thousands and thousands of broadcasts that we've done. It's rare that there's a college football game being played with an in-state team, but it does happen.
It does happen.
Kind of like a lunar eclipse. It does happen every now and then. And today is one of those days. And in about 4 hours, they'll be kicking off from Tampa. Our man Range Pro early this morning, not only on the chat room, Barry, but my executive VIP text line was dinging early today. And I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? This is even before my alarm went off.
You know, if you've ever listened to this program, the high regard we hold Range Pro in, I mean, all of those years in the Dreamland Pick 3 and in all of the different things that we do, our bracket contest, our bowl prediction contest, Range Pro is right there. Here it is, John. New Year's Eve.
Yep.
Before 7 o'clock in the morning, and Range Pro is on it on our River Region Straw chat line. Range Pro at 6:57 in the morning. John, he's checking the lines, you know. Yeah. This is game day. Kidding around's pretty much over. It's like Gordon Gekko says, money never sleeps, pal.
Yep, never does.
Range Pro says this, and I want to figure out why. He didn't say why this happens, but he says, hey, New Year's Eve top line movement alert. Bama was minus 13.5 all day yesterday, and is currently at minus 16. Red alert, red alert. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
What's happening? Yep. Some big money on the Tide late, right before kickoff. A lot of opt-outs for Michigan. We talked about that yesterday. Are there more? Is Bama some rumor about a big trick that a wrinkle that Bama's going to throw out on the Wolverines today? I don't know. I just, Michigan's not as good as they were last year. That's obvious.
Well, they're the defending national champions, and they're both Alabama and Michigan were in the 14 playoff last year. Neither of them are in this year. Alabama's not as good as they were last year.
But for Alabama to be a 16-point favorite against a team like Michigan, I mean, I thought 12.5 was a little high when it first came out.
So did I. Yeah.
And
does anybody care to venture a guess?
Somebody get arrested down there last night?
Let's see. I don't know. I've got to figure that one out.
Yeah.
The good news is that today, here on New Year's Eve, we are not only serving as an entree into the ReliaQuest Bowl. Still don't know what that is. What is Relia? I'll find out today because they'll run.
Maybe that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Run about 145 ads. That starts in Tampa, ESPN, 11 o'clock. It is the first of 5 games, including including our first college football playoff quarterfinal. That'll be tonight at 6:30. Now, a lot of the games are going to run together. Alabama, Michigan at 11. Louisville and Washington on CBS from the Sun Bowl at 1. South Carolina and Illinois on ABC at 2 in the Citrus Bowl. Baylor and LSU in the Texas Bowl at 2:30 from Houston on ESPN. And then they clear it all out. Okay, let's get the 4-hour window to get that Baylor LSU game done with in Baylor's final game. Maybe it's a look-ahead game for Baylor because they host Auburn to start.
Could be. Mm-hmm.
Then the Fiesta Bowl, the college football playoff quarterfinal. Our guy Tom Luganbill will be one of the two on the sidelines from Glendale, Arizona. Penn State versus Boise State on ESPN.
And I'm going to stand by what I've been saying. I'm really interested to see what game has a better rating. Alabama and Michigan, a game that Luganbill even yesterday talked about. Well-known helmet teams. People know them. Look for big ratings there. Or Penn State, Boise, that will be going on when a lot of people are beginning their New Year's Eve celebrations. You know, a lot of people out partying, ringing in the new year, flushing 2024 down the toilet, say, enough of you, I'm ready to move on, new
That's
year.
right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I wonder about that.
Including the Phantom, well, no.
Well, I don't know if Phantom's okay so far. We're doing okay, but you never know. 3 SEC teams playing today: Alabama, South Carolina, and LSU. LSU, the only underdog in the SEC today, a 3.5-point dog taking on that Baylor. Is it the addition of the new quarterback at Baylor that's moved that line, or what's going on there? I mean, Baylor
he can't
over
play.
LSU.
He can't play yet. I do know that out of the 4 quarterfinal games, only this game and the Texas-Arizona State game tomorrow at noon in the whatever bowl that, the Chick-fil-A bowl are double-digit lines. Penn State favored by 11, Texas favored by 12.5. And then tomorrow night, Ohio State and Oregon from Pasadena. Ohio State favored by 2.5. Notre Dame, Georgia tomorrow night in the Sugar Bowl. Georgia favored by 1.5 with the backup quarterback. The 2 early games, the one tonight, the one tomorrow, early, double-digit lines. This is it a case of just, separating the men from the boys, or the chaff from the wheat and everything? Yeah.
Get on out of here. Get on out of here. We're not interested in the riffraff. So, some big games today. Bama, a big favorite, big line movement. What's happening down in Tampa for the Tide to be a 16? I see 16.5 in one spot out in Vegas. So there's some money on the Crimson Tide. And Range Pro certainly alerted us about that big line movement overnight. So we'll keep an eye on that before kickoff, which is a little less than 4 hours away. If you're watching us live, if you're watching us throughout the day, then the game might have already kicked. You never know. It just depends on what time you check us out.
If you're watching us during the day, here's a quick thing. What in the heck's wrong with Alabama? Why can't they move the football? What in the world? Let's get things going.
Told you they couldn't win a natty with Milroe as their quarteback, but who knows? Maybe they'll bust
if you're
out.
Flipping during a commercial break, and that's the first thing you see, you're going to say, "Wow, McKnight knows what he's talking about," or what in the world? Catching you up a little bit in our first segment here. The Auburn basketball team, men's basketball team, against now 2-11 Monmouth. No problem. Auburn wins it 87-58. Plenty of highlights in that game. Auburn 87, Monmouth 58. In a game like that, Monmouth still covered, John. They still covered the 37.5.
Whoa.
Also, yesterday, South Carolina was a winner in SEC basketball, and the only reason why I bring that up is with South Carolina's win in basketball, every team in the SEC has finished pre-conference play with at least 10 wins. I have never heard of that in any conference ever. The worst record in the SEC is South Carolina. They are 10-3. It's going to be a dogfight this year. Alabama, they will play first. I've got it right here. Or they will play next. See if I can read my writing here. Alabama will play next against Oklahoma on Saturday. That's going to be an amazing game. I'll just go ahead and tell you that's one of the top picks around the country for best game of the weekend slate. That'll be at 5 in Tuscaloosa on the SEC Network. Number 2, Auburn will take on Missouri in Auburn on Saturday. That is at 3 on the SEC Network. And then we are off and running in conference basketball coming up this weekend. So,
yep, looking forward to the conference action. It's been some great non-conference action, no doubt. We've talked a lot about, how both Auburn and Alabama have beefed up their non-conference competition, but getting into conference play, and then what you said there about how many teams would tell me, all these teams with 10 wins, you kidding me? That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Yep. So, yeah, in that Oklahoma matchup right out of the gate, I'm not sure that's what Nate Oates wants, just to start the conference play, but hey, you play the hand that you're dealt.
Yep, and Oklahoma has not lost. They are one of 3 undefeated teams in the country, and they come to Tuscaloosa on Saturday. Also, real quickly, last night the Lions beat the 49ers 40-34. The Lions have a huge one coming up this coming weekend against the Vikings to determine, well, who wins the NFC North, number 1 NFC seed and all that. That's going to be maybe the best game of the year, Sunday night.
Because, and let me go ahead and get this out of the way, because we've been bombarded from Robbie from Greenville. He cannot seem to read an email or a text, but excuse me. C.D. Powell is leading the Longshore McKnight Bowl prediction contest. C.D. Powell, followed by I don't know who, and the I is I-E-Y-E. So it must be an eye doctor.
So if somebody says, hey, John, who's in second place in the Longshore and McKnight Bowl prediction contest? John says, I don't know who.
I don't know who.
Why not? Yeah. How come you don't know? No, I do know. Well, who is it? I don't know who.
I do know C.D. Powell's in first. I don't know is second. Ken Cup in third. Brady B3 in 4, and Hannon B is in 5th. So there's our top 5 positions. Big Lou 77, who had been holding on to the number 1 spot for quite some time, has now moved down to 8th position.
Yeah.
So that's about your, and I could go through the top 10, but I'm not going to go through the entire list. Robbie, I don't see you anywhere near the top 10.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it, to be honest. About that. So,
and speaking of Robbie,
and
Daryl, who were had a game out in our Dreamland Pick 3. Now Curtis was already in the barn.
Yep. We mentioned that early yesterday and said, Curtis, you're going to have to be patient. I know it stinks to have to wait, but Robbie loves him a Monday night game and all that kind of stuff. And then later on, Curtis came on the chat line. He says, hey man, what gives? Well, I got to wait a day. Yeah. Well, I'm glad Curtis, you weren't there when we broke the news early.
Man, Curtis, it's
disappointing.
Curtis, you came out on the top end of it because Daryl and Robbie both had Missouri -3.
Oh, now that was a good game
against Iowa.
That was worthwhile. I had a chance to watch a good bit of that. Missouri wins it by 3.
By 3, yeah.
Late field goal, late defensive stand. Missouri 27, Iowa 24. 10-win season for Missouri.
There you go.
Great
Way to
game.
go, Mizzou.
Yeah.
The problem for Robert and Daryl, that was not enough because you got to cover the spread.
Cover.
And pushing is not covering.
Yes.
So, Robert, Daryl, you have been eliminated. Curtis, you are the winner of this week's Dreamland Pick 3 contest. We'll get some information out to you so we can get that $50 gift card in the mail for you to enjoy some great Dreamland barbecue.
Curtis just checks in on the chat line. He says, sweet, thanks. Barbecue me up. Yep, Dreamland Barbecue. If you want to, Curtis, you can email us, longshoreandmcknight@gmail.com. What does he need? We need his name, contact information,
That's right. Matter of fact, I'm sending it out there to him right now.
There we go. Yeah.
Good job for you, Curtis. Let me tell you about what's going on. Speaking of Range Pro, I told you about that great shrimp, beautiful shrimp. It's so delicious that we had over Christmas for shrimp and grits. Well, today at the Destin Connection, New Year's Eve, they're open 9 to 6. Stock up on oysters, both in the shell and shucked in pints, all sizes of fresh Gulf shrimp, crab meat, and a large selection and variety of fresh Gulf fish. Also, they'll be open Thursday through Saturday from 9 until 6. Call ahead for boiled, peeled, and deveined shrimp or lunch orders like that grilled grouper po' boy, which is one of my favorites, 288-4272. That's 288-4272, the Destin Connection Seafood Market, 3750 Norman Bridge Road.
Has anybody seen David Scott shuck oysters before?
Woo!
I bet
peeled
it's
shrimp.
a blur. Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet he's peeled a few shrimp in his life, to say the least.
No
Over the
doubt
Destin
about
Connection, we are underway. And when I say underway, we are fully engaged here as we close out 2024. Seems like it just went by so fast, but it's done. We're getting into 2025. We're closing it out a little bit later on today with our guy, Brian Matthews from AuburnSports.com. An uneven year for Auburn athletics, calendar year. Travis Reier from Talkin' Tide and Reier on YouTube a little bit later on as well. A lot to get to as we wrap up 2024. He's John Longshore. I'm Barry McKnight. In association with Yellowhammer News, it's Longshore and McKnight, presented by Bud Light.
Hey, folks, you got to take advantage of the incredible holiday savings at Stivers Ford in Montgomery, where they sell America's best-selling truck for 50 years in a row, the F-150. And you can get an F-150 at 1.9% APR for 60 months or up to $15,000 off MSRP and no payments for 90 days. Hundreds to choose from. Your F-150 is on the lot right now. Also, F-150 Lightnings, $15,000 off MSRP and 0% APR for 72 months. What about the stylish Ford Bronco? Up to $10,000 off MSRP, starting as low as $34,990. And it started it all with the Ford Explorer. You can get one for up to $8,000 off MSRP, as low as $33,900 and 1.9% APR for 66 months. Folks, Stivers Ford is loaded with cars, trucks, and SUVs priced to sell. Stivers Ford, 4000 Eastern Boulevard in Montgomery, where price sells cars.
Heads or tails, kick or receive, with the wind or against the wind. Buy your friend a Bud Light. Buy a stranger a Bud Light. Go to your team's bar. Go to the opposing team's bar. Buy around during the next truck commercial. Buy around during the next talking duck commercial. If you're truly up for whatever this weekend, grab the perfect beer for whatever happens. Crisp, refreshing Bud Light. Make 2 plans and let the NFL coin toss make the call. Enjoy responsibly. Bud Light Beer, Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
Book tee time sooner. Save on every round. That's what you get with the 2025 RTJ Trail Card. Destination Golf is closer than you might think. Buy a 2025 Trail Card and save every time you play. Plus, you will be automatically entered into the Trails Loyalty Program. Enjoy 10-day advance reservation privileges at each location. 11-day advanced internet tee times on rtjgolf.com and the RTJ app. Enjoy the benefits of a 2025 Trail Card. It makes for a great stocking stuffer and you save on every round you play in 2025 on the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail. Already back at it, 20 minutes past the hour. As we mentioned, Brian Matthews, auburnsports.com. In about 10 minutes, Travis Reier at the top of the next hour. Reier on YouTube, Talking Tide. Travis is actually at the dentist office at this as we speak. He thinks he'll be out by 8. I said, no problem if you're running a little late.
Who in the world goes to the dentist on New Year's Eve
at 7 in the morning?
Must be an emergency.
I wondered about that, but he's at the dentist, maybe just a routine cleaning, end of the year, trying to get that last one in before the end of the year. Oh, hey, Range Pro says local man's got it at 17 now. Bama minus 17 against Michigan. I mean, this is hard to believe. Something funny is going on.
There's an interesting piece from Joseph Goodman at AL.com. Is Jalen Milroe worth the money for another season at Alabama? And we're talking about now, he's crunching some numbers over. He's predicted to be one of the top 4 quarterbacks taken in the draft, which would put him at worst early second round, at worst. And a second round draft choice, usually the average contract is around $6.09 million. Alabama ain't ponying up $6.09 million to entice Jalen Milroe to stay. A lot of different things about it.
Am I the only one out there? It's time for him to move on. I wouldn't pony up $6. I mean, love the kid, great face of the program, great athlete, but it's time to move on.
That leaves my question. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and bore everybody. Well, maybe if Alabama gives him $4.375 million, he'll stay in the development for 6.0. That's boring. What will be? And I agree with Bob from Pike Road. Milroe will be gone after today, but the premise is, does he go Jalen Hurts and transfer somewhere else for a year? Does he, he goes to the NFL draft, which is last year, as I've mentioned before, was a terrific NFL quarterback draft class. This year, not so much. Next year's predicted to be pretty good. So you get it while the getting's good. He won't be one of the top projected 3 or 4 quarterbacks next year if he stays. So he's got to go. But John brings up the point that I'm begging for from our viewers and listeners. What will be Milroe's legacy at Alabama? Like John said, John just now sounded like he was dissing him a little bit. Let him go. I say let him crash. But yet again, in that same sentence, great kid, wonderful kid. He was the Campbell Award winner as the best student athlete, the best scholar athlete in college football this year. And he's represented Alabama well. He's been positive. He is a strong Christian, all of this kind of stuff. But people have been dog cussing him, and the team is a win away from a 10-win season under him. What's his legacy?
I don't know if people have jumped on my bandwagon since about a year ago when I came back and got run through the ringer making the statement, Alabama cannot win the national championship with Jalen Milroe at quarterback. I mean, people were going berserk. Couldn't believe I made a statement like that. And my reasoning was he's limited. The playbook's limited. He only can do certain things. They got to expand the playbook. I didn't see the playbook expanded this year. So, he's a great athlete. Don't get me wrong. Great face of the program. Got the SEC graduate tag on his jersey. He's in graduate school. I mean, he's doing everything right. I have nothing but high praise for Jalen Milroe. But as a quarterback, I don't get it. And I don't get why Mel Kiper thinks he's the 3rd best quarterback in the NFL draft. There again, I'm not a draft expert. But I just think it's time for him to move on. I think he's accomplished everything he can at Alabama. What will he be remembered for? Probably the 4th and 31 play. I mean, that'll be his legacy. I'm trying to think of what other big play.
He'll be remembered for coming up short on that 4th and goal against Michigan in the semifinal, and that wasn't his fault. A lot of it ain't his fault. You know, that's when Theoda said Milroe, he couldn't win the big one. Was it him? Or was
I
it?
don't know. How old
him?
was he at the time? Was he 17 then? No, he was 16 at the time. And my 16-year-old, when that play happened, I heard him say something that his mother wouldn't have appreciated, but I let it slide because I pretty much said about the same thing.
Maybe a little bit louder when you get right down to it. So, yeah, a win over number 1 Georgia. Thanks to a miracle play when 2 Georgia defensive backs all of a sudden sleepwalked through a 72-yard touchdown pass to Ryan Williams, who is 17 right now.
Yeah. But that's a good question. I mean, what is Milroe's? I mean, he had a great game against LSU, ran all up and down the field. I'm trying to think last year. There again, the 4th and 31 play is the one that everybody's going to remember.
But there's a lot of people who say even that is bittersweet because there is no way on God's green earth Alabama should even have been in that position in the first place. A miracle touchdown against a bad Auburn team? How did that happen? I do think this, as far as his legacy goes, I mean, he's won an SEC championship. So did Blake Sims. John's main point about Milroe is not a bad point. He did not win a national championship at Alabama. If that's all you, well, you know, if you don't win the national championship, you're a failure at Alabama.
Well,
I'm telling you, they ain't going to win a champion as if 130 other quarterbacks in college football are all going to win championships, and Milroe's going to be on the outside looking.
I'm going to throw this out there. To all you viewers and listeners that are Bama fans, off the top of your head, can you tell me who the quarterback was? Can you tell me who the quarterback was when Alabama beat Clemson for the national championship?
I think I can. Was it Jake Coker?
Jake Coker. How many of you people out there went, ooh, who was that? Oh, yeah, it was Jake Coker.
That's another thing that drives me crazy about Bama fans. Which championship was that? Was that the one in Pasadena? No, that was the one in Miami. Because remember, you and I got blitzed the night before.
So here's my deal about that, and I agree because somebody, I think it was Kevin. And Kevin, I think you make a good point, and we've touched on this before. One of the things about Milroe. And there again, I've been very upfront about I just think he's limited in what he can do. But he also was stepping in after you had Bryce Young, Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, A.J. McCarron. I mean, quarterbacks that were efficient. You know, these guys could get it done. It's kind of hard to step in. It's kind of like, you know, stepping in for Saban. I mean, how do you step in after Bryce Young and Tua? I mean, that's tough. And I think Bama fans were expecting the next guy up to be just as good as they were.
That's what Kevin Sumrall pointed. He said Bama fan was spoiled with Tua and Bryce, and Milroe was no Tua and Bryce.
Definitely.
If that's the worst you can say, if that's the biggest criticism you can give over giving Jalen Milroe as much crud as you gave him for those several years, is that he didn't win a national championship, and he's no Tua Tagovailoa and Bryce Young. You are spoiled, because let me tell you, in case you haven't noticed, guys like that don't come around the pipe every day, okay?
Now, is that a news flash? Bama fan spoiled. Is that just the beginning of time? Has that not been the case?
Yeah, that has been the case. But he's been at Alabama every year. Could have transferred. Never transferred, never, I don't know if it ever even occurred to him. Got his undergraduate degree, about to get his master's degree. If he goes to the NFL and he starts just dealing, I didn't think Jalen Hurts would be an NFL quarterback. And he's playing $255 million in his contract, and he's got the Eagles at the top of the NFC East. And people were dog cussing Jalen Hurts. If the same thing happens to Jalen Milroe and he starts dealing in the NFL, then you got all those fat cat Bama fans. Yeah, I remember when Milroe, I always liked him. It's the same people who said, I never thought that Dubose should stay. I always thought he should go. Yeah,
I know it's
he loses 8 games.
I think you got to separate quarterback from person. And I think he's a great person. He's a great face of the program. I mean, his post-game interviews are great. People love it. Always smiling, saying Roll Tide. He's got the graduate patch on his uniform. The guy just, he's a positive influence. There's nothing you can say wrong about him. But I just have always thought that he was limited as a quarterback. Great athlete, just limited as a quarterback.
And good point from Bob from Pike Road. He says, Barry, he did have back-to-back wins versus number 1 Georgia. Of course, Bob is down on Georgia these days. So, if you look at it in its entirety for Milroe, if the only thing you can say negative, didn't win a national championship like 130 other quarterbacks, and he's not Bryce and he's not Tua, I think that's a pretty good legacy. Let's take a break.
Not bad. Yeah, let's take a break. When we return, our man Brian Matthews, auburnsports.com. He'll join us on our City of Montgomery guest hotline. Looking forward to seeing what Brian's got in store for us here on the last day of 2024.
Hard to believe. In conjunction with Yellowhammer News, it's Longshore and McKnight, presented by Bud Light.
Why Hands? At Hands Heating and Air, you get this area's highest ranked service provider with 24-hour repair service, no overtime charges, and their same-day service guarantee. Plus, instead of other companies' 30-day repair warranty, Hands gives you a 3-year repair warranty. Hands Heating and Air is here for you 24/7, 365. And service is not just something they do, it's their way of operating, for you in mind. All of Hands employees are trained to adhere to this standard. They work hard to ensure that this standard is maintained, and they are constantly looking for new ways to better serve you. Call Hands Heating and Air today at 508-5382. That's 508-5382, or find them on the web at 834hands.com.
In sports, if you think joy only happens after you win, think again. Look at the world's most successful athletes like Serena Williams, Brooks Koepka, and Alex Morgan. They don't spend all their days grinding away. They take time to enjoy themselves, like getting together with friends over a Michelob Ultra, because they know that happiness is the key to winning, and that joy is the whole game, not just the end game. Michelob Ultra. 95 calories, 2.6 grams of carbs. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Enjoy responsibly. AB Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Hey, this is Barry McKnight from Longshore and McKnight, telling you about our friends at River Region Straw. You're not buying sticks or stems and pine cones. You're buying premium long needle pine straw from River Region Straw. Kenny and his staff have access to the best pine straw in the River Region, full of color, that'll last all season long. They've got locations in Montgomery, Prattville, and Auburn, and no order is too big or too small. From a few bales to an 18-wheeler trailer load, River Region Straw also has seasoned firewood for the cold days and nights ahead. Pickup is available, and your order can be delivered if you like. They can even spread your pine straw if that's what you want to have happen, for sure. Call or text Kenny today, 669-5959. That's 669-5959 for all of your pine straw and firewood needs at River Region Straw.
Okay, here we are back on a Tuesday. As I mentioned, the last day of 2024. We're bringing in our friend Brian Matthews, auburnsports.com. Hey, Brian, how you doing today?
Good morning, guys. Doing great. Always good to be in and talk a little bit of Auburn sports and sports in general with you guys.
We've talked with you for so many times and for so many years. Does it feel like, as we all are growing older, that years are zipping by faster and faster? Does it feel that way in 2024, Brian?
It feels like I snapped my fingers and my kids grew up and I grew a lot more gray hair. So I don't know what happened in the last 20 years. I have no idea.
What happened? When you were younger, your birthdays never could get here quick enough. Now it seems like they're happening every 6 months.
I can remember when I was a young parent that people would come up to us and say something like, it goes by really fast or something like that. But like, okay, thank you. Merry Christmas or whatever. And here I am.
Those 2 a.m. diaper changes, you're going, they're not going fast enough.
Yeah,
but it does go by quickly. Wrapping up 2024 last night with a dominant win over a bad Monmouth team for the Auburn men's basketball team. The non-conference is over. We noted earlier, though, Brian, that South Carolina won. That makes every team in the SEC has at least 10 wins in the pre-conference schedule. Nobody, I don't think, had a tougher pre-conference schedule than Auburn did, but it's about to get really, really real. How well suited is this Auburn team from what you've seen to kind of continue the pace they've been on?
I think they could not have put themselves in a better position to compete in the SEC with the schedule they did play. I mean, home and away, neutral sites. They have played some of the best teams around the country so far. They have the most quad one wins, so they're prepared. But Bruce opened up his post-game press conference talking about the SEC, how it's going to be the toughest conference in history, I think is what he said. And he said Auburn's going to lose some games. It's going to be a war. It's going to come down to matchups a lot of nights. And, we'll just have to see how they get through it. But he is expecting quite a challenge.
I think so, no doubt. I mean, you see how many teams already have double-digit wins, playing some good non-conference competition before the conference slate starts up here. So, yeah, I mean, I'm no doubt. I mean, there are going to be some losses. You've just got to be ready when tournament time rolls around. And not to de-emphasize the regular season, because I think it's going to be fun to watch, but you got to be ready in March.
That's right. Auburn is maybe the best team in the country in November, December. But you're going to look, 2 or 3 months around, there's going to be teams that are pretty good now who are great by the time we get to March. So Auburn is going to have to continue to push itself to get better. I think if you just watched, the last few games, you see Ja'Kai Howard coming on. He's a guy that can get better and be more of an impact player with his team. Todd Pettiford, another freshman, keeps playing and getting much, much better. He's gone from being a guy to come off the bench and play a little 1, a little 2 to being Auburn's, clear number 2 point guard and a guy they rely on to be a spark plug too, as a playmaker and as an outside shooter. So they've still got room to grow, and that's what they're going to need to do over the next 18 games.
All right, I got to ask you this because John and I were conjecturing about this from yesterday. Just an opinion, and it doesn't mean anything. Walker White announces his transfer to Baylor, and he says he's looking forward to Jake Spavital's offense and being where there's a clear plan for development, for quarterback development. What do you think that means?
I think Baylor probably laid out exactly how they plan to use him and develop him, and he didn't feel like he was getting that at Auburn. I think that's partly because, Auburn's had to overturn its entire quarterback room after last season. So every quarterback that was in that room won't be in that room. And if he would have returned, he would have been the only one there. And I also think, when it came down to it, I don't think he's one of those players that Auburn really fought to keep. I think there are a couple, with Auburn and the transfer portal, they worked really hard to keep him here. And I think they understood that maybe he wasn't the greatest fit in the world for this offense, and wished him the very best. A great young man, I think, only here a year, so maybe he would have developed. Not saying he wouldn't have, but I think they felt like they had to go in a entirely new direction in that room.
And I think the handwriting was on the wall. I mean, you bring in not 1, but 2 transfer quarterbacks. I mean, obviously they're bringing in guys they want to play quickly. And unless he was going to have a miraculous spring in preseason camp, that kid wasn't going to play.
Yep. And they brought in one of the top quarterback signees in the history of the program as far as his ranking. And
Yeah.
I think Deuce Knight, with the reps he's going to get, it would be hard to stay ahead of him, to be honest.
We were telling this story earlier. I had, whatever it was, 2 weeks ago, I had stayed up and watched every snap of Georgia Tech. It went like 7 or 8 overtimes. And I kept thinking, why isn't anybody covering that Singleton kid? Now he's at Auburn, and I'm not blowing smoke or sunshine or anything, but that receiver, Eric Singleton from Georgia Tech, who Auburn has signed out of the portal, seems like he would be a perfect fit in what Auburn tries to do on offense. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I thought Auburn's best transfer so far this era has been Keandre Lambert-Smith last year from Penn State. He had such an impact on the team. And I think Eric Singleton can have a similar impact. A little bit different player. KLS was clearly an outside receiver because of his size. Eric Singleton has played outside at Georgia Tech, but he's 5'11", so he can play inside or outside. He's got tremendous speed. Veteran guy, will be a leader for those young guys in the room and should be an instant impact there on offense. And I think if you look at Auburn's offense, Jackson Arnold at quarterback, Xavier Chaplin at left tackle, another really good receiver. Most of the running backs coming back, plus they signed Darrell Robinson from UConn. You got to feel a lot better about the weapons they have and the balance they have on that side of the ball than they had a year ago.
We always talk about, particularly in recruiting, but I guess transfer portal, fits it as well. Filling needs. In your opinion, Brian, how well have they filled their needs?
I'd say 9.5 out of 10. They just have a couple more they got to fill, but they brought in 14 players so far and filled just about every need. They need a defensive tackle from the portal. They've got a bunch of second-year freshmen at that position. They need a veteran to come in and be a playmaker and just provide some rotational minutes with a guy like Malik Blockton, who's extremely talented and started some as a true freshman last year. They probably need another edge guy on defense, pass rusher to replace Jalen McLeod. They've got 3 scholarship guys coming back, including Keyron Crawford, a transfer from last year, who could have a big step forward. He was a basketball player and hasn't played football for very long. And they got a couple of freshmen that they redshirted last year and a really good true freshman coming in, maybe the most talented of the bunch. But you still, at that key position like that, you want a proven guy. So I think that's an area they'll still look to fill out, and maybe just a couple of depth pieces at linebacker and some other spots potentially.
Brian, again, I just want to get you to follow up on something John and I have been talking about before. I told this story. I've always liked Kirk Herbstreit. I've always thought he stood for the wrong things. I like how he treats Corso and his dog, and I've got his book and all this kind of. Lately, to me, though, he's been kind of a jerk. I remember, I was watching the Indiana game against Notre Dame on that Friday, and right after the game, he's talking about how it's obvious that Indiana doesn't belong. We need to stop looking at the committee needs to stop looking at tweets and Twitter and social media and need to get back to who we think that. And I'm thinking, of course, I've got family that teaches at Indiana, so that kind of hurt me. He's been abrasive as heck about a lot of stuff, particularly something like this that he is supposed to be a face of in the college football playoff. There's always blowouts. There were blowouts in the CFP first round games when it was 4 teams. How do you feel about all that?
Yeah, there were 30 games in the 4-game format total, 10 years, and about half of those 14 were blowouts of 20 or more points. Auburn has a history with Herbstreit, as far as I'm concerned. I think you can go back all the way to 2004. I know that's a long time ago now. Doesn't seem that way to me, but him and ESPN were telling everybody that Oklahoma was getting this defensive lineman back, and their defense was going to be so much better. Right? That's why they deserved to be in the college football. The BCS championship instead of Auburn against USC, and of course USC. I think the final was 55-19 or something crazy like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but. He, in my opinion, is a guy that just repeats whatever this college coach or this college administrator tells him, or the prevailing thought or the wind. When I listened to College Game Day last week, and they talked about the portal and how terrible it was for college football, and and NIL and how bad it was for college football, there is no representation of how much better it is for college football players now. The freedom they've had. I don't think anybody mentioned that most of these new rules were because the NCAA has lost lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit because they were operating, I won't say illegally, but they were operating outside the laws of the United States of America. So I just I think there needs to be more balance, and he doesn't offer any balance or, to me, any real insight from what the prevailing thought is from just regular guys in college football who have spent their lives complaining over and over again about this and that.
Well, and to me, he is not the only one that was complaining about the first
all of
round
them were.
games and everything. A lot of them were, and a 12-team playoff. The last several teams probably don't deserve to play for a national championship, but still,
Right.
To say that they didn't belong, that's always kind of struck me wrong, Brian.
Brian, I'm just glad Barry likes me as much as he does, because I said pretty much the same thing about Indiana. SMU, Boise, don't need them, gave them the lip flutter, and there again, it looks like they've already started to talk about, we got to reseed this. This was not done well in our first attempt at it. I think in Atlanta at the national championship game, there's going to be meetings about that very subject. And Barry and I talked about this yesterday. I mean, there's going to be an expansion, but should there be? If you've got teams in it that already people are talking about should not be in it, I just wonder if it's going to be more centralized and more focused on the Big Ten and the SEC, and some of these other leagues or some of these other teams are just kind of going to get slowly pushed out as the playoff continues to move forward.
Well, I think the SEC and Big Ten, who run things now, are going to probably insist on having more automatic qualifiers for those two leagues at some point, probably in 2026. We'll see.
And I think the TV networks are going to back them up on that.
I could see that. And I do think there are tweaks they can do. I think having those games at home was wonderful. I thought the atmospheres were great, and we need to see more of that. I think teams like Oregon, who were the best team during the regular season, are rewarded by having to play the first game 800 miles away from home. I don't like that. I like to see these teams have opportunities to play at home. I also think the seeding could be changed a little bit. And I think another thing we got to think about is this is just 1 year. It's a small sample size. We don't know exactly how things are turned out. I think there is a trend. I'm not saying it's a fact, but I think there's a trend in college football where the talent is being spread out more. It's more competitive. And I think that is happening because of NLI and because of the transfer portal. So I think there's a possibility that 3 or 4 years from now, those first round games could be more competitive and more exciting. We could have some of those upsets that you love to see in college basketball because there's so many more games, right? If there's 32 first round games, you're going to have 1, 2, 3, or 4, so 5 upsets, right? There were 4 first round games in football, and you didn't have that. So that's another thing to keep in mind too. But I'm all for the 12-team playoff or whatever form it comes in. I do think there could be some tweaks, but I don't believe that such and such team didn't belong just because it got blown out. I think that's part of college football and has been for quite a while.
If you favor me, somebody texted this question. Do you like the future at Auburn of Perry Thompson and Bryce Cain?
I do. I think Perry's going to have to compete for that job with Eric Singleton, although Eric can play inside too. I think Bryce Cain is a big spring for him. They got Malcolm Simmons back at that slot position, but Sam Jackson moved on, so there's not a whole lot of depth there. So it's a chance for him to step up and take a spot in the rotation. But Auburn has some talent there, but they don't have a ton of depth, even with the 2 transfers coming in, because they had, I think, 2 or 3 outgoing transfers and a couple of guys that ran out eligibility there. So that's still an opportunity for those young guys this spring to really step up and grab a job. So absolutely. I think Perry, especially at that outside job, you saw what Cam Coleman was able to do this year. You saw what Malcolm was able to do, and that outside job on the other side is up for grabs.
Brian Matthews, AuburnSports.com, joining us here this morning. Just of all the bowl games you've seen so far, is one stood out above the other? I know we got a lot more to go, but yeah, the only one that got me, Brian, was no representation of the unfrosted Pop-Tart at the Pop-Tart Bowl.
I was going to bring this up.
I mean, you
Yeah.
got to be kidding me. It was all about the frosting and the
I know.
sprinkles.
It's
I don't
kids
get it.
these days.
It's
I mean,
unbelievable.
See, to me, just the plain blueberry would be number one. And I saw somebody put on Twitter that plain strawberry was their all-time goat. So
Yes. Yeah.
I think us old folk need to be represented, and have an opportunity for our Pop-Tart to win the
Yeah.
Pop-Tart challenge. So
It's
I
just
get it.
weird, Brian, because in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, where you have the number 2 Heisman Trophy finisher only play a half, and he sits on the sidelines and
Yeah.
watch his team lose by 1. According to John, that wasn't the biggest injustice of the entire game.
it was not. I agree. And I would definitely crawl over broken glass naked to get to the Pop-Tarts Bowl and cover that before my career's over. So
Yeah.
I'm just
You
saying.
know,
the sprinkles on that.
I don't know what Cole Kublic's, his love of Pop-Tarts, but if it was me, I would have demanded the unfrosted Pop-Tart suit. He
Yeah.
had some sprinkle suit on.
Yep, I agree. Yep.
Mm.
Yep. We may have, because of time constraints, we may have to skip over the Edie Gourmet reference with Steve Lawrence,
Yeah.
who was great in the Carol Burnett show
Okay.
on BMAT's Monday Musings at auburnsports.com, brought to you by Uncle Keith's Red Sauce,
Oh,
Piggly
beautiful.
Wigglies, Renfro's, the Auburn Opelika, Kroger, and all that online as well. Brian, 2024 is in the books. I know a lot of people looking forward to 2025, a great year for basketball. Football's going to be a lot better.
You hope.
2025 with auburnsports.com. That seems like the way to go if you're an Auburn fan.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And we will be busy with basketball coverage, portaling coming up here, another round of visits coming up here at the 1st of January, and everything else out there. Just want to mention Edie Gourmet. Her version of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas is excellent. If you build yourself a Christmas playlist, that's one you should add. And of course, Uncle Keith's Red Sauce, who sponsors Monday Musings too. All that and more. auburnsports.com. Follow me on socials at BMATAU.
Wasn't there a great SNL skit with Steve and Edie and then Frank Sinatra?
Oh
yeah.
I saw a lot of great videos going back and researching that. I really enjoyed it. Yep.
Good stuff. Appreciate you, Brian.
you,
Happy
buddy.
New Year.
Y'all take care.
Hi, man. Brian Matthews, auburnsports.com, brought to you by our City of Montgomery guest hotline. You need to know what's going on in and around the capital city during New Year's? Check it out at montgomeryal.gov.
We'll take a break. Don't forget, we're coming up in about 10 minutes or so with Travis Reier, back from the dentist.
Yeah.
Hope there's no Novocaine. Talking Tide, Reier on YouTube. That's coming up with Longshore and McKnight, presented by Bud Light.
Phoenix Physical Therapy is ready to help patients recover, recharge, and rise. They develop a customized therapy plan for each patient to get them back to enjoying their favorite activities. Their experienced team is committed to providing exceptional care in a professional environment. Whether you're looking to prevent or treat an injury, recover from a recent illness, or recuperate from surgery, schedule an appointment with our clinic and take advantage of our physical therapy, athletic training, workers' comp, and employer solutions service. Experience elevated physical therapy today. Call Phoenix Physical Therapy at 239-9316. That's 239-9316.
Some days you hit snooze, but not today. Today you have to go on a run to get burgers for the tailgate. You've got to haul something heavy, a cooler stocked with Bud Light. When you've got beer and football, nothing is hard. Until the other team scores. Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Enjoy responsibly. 21 plus. Copyright 2024 Anheuser-Busch Bud Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Local banking expertise, the newest innovations and technology, personal attention, genuine hospitality. It's all just part of the Riverbank and Trust difference. They invite you to experience it for yourself. Welcome to banking above and beyond at River Bank and Trust. Locations throughout the River region, locations throughout the state of Alabama. River Bank and Trust.
All guests of Longshore McKnight appear on the City of Montgomery guest hotline. Check out the most interesting and informed personalities in sports covering Auburn, Alabama, Troy, ASU, and all the major teams from across the country. John and Barry have the best guests brought to you by the City of Montgomery. To find out everything you need to know that is going on in the capital city, check out montgomeryal.gov. That's montgomeryal.gov, the capital of dreams.
Hey, big New Year's celebration out at Victoryland, exit 22 off I-85 in Shorter, Alabama. Make sure to head on out there to win some big cash at Victoryland Casino 24/7. Check it all out. Ring in the new year. You can be a winner too at Victoryland.
He's John Longshore. I'm Barry McKnight. Happy New Year to everybody. We will not have a show on New Year's Day.
Yeah.
You guys are going to have to do it yourselves. You're going to have to hang in there. We will be back on Thursday and Friday to open up 2025.
And I know what people are thinking out there. You know, Bama's been a big favorite earlier this season. Now, I guess this is a road game of some sort because they're not playing in the friendly confines of Bryant-Denny. But Bama was a big favorite. I think it was 19 points when they went to Norman and got beat by 21. Bama's a big favorite today against a Michigan team that beat Alabama a year ago. If they pull another stunt like they did in Norman, people have already asked, are you going to have like emergency programming tomorrow to recap the game? Just going to go ahead and tell you, no matter what the outcome of this morning's game is, we will not be on the air tomorrow.
You're just going to have to practice self-care.
Yeah.
If that happens. I mean, you know, 2 straight years of Alabama's season ending with a loss to Michigan.
And what would that do for Kalen DeBoer? You know what's going to happen in the offseason. We'll hear it through the spring and summer. You know, Kate, had a month to get ready for a Michigan team they were a 16-point favorite against. Blew it again. What's happening? Programs in shambles. If they win it, it's not going to be that big of a deal. You know, people will just, not have anything to gripe about. But if they lose it, whew, watch out.
Well, we're talking about the Reliant Quest Bowl or the Iron Bowl. I
Another Reliant Quest Bowl.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Definitely the Reliant Quest Bowl. I get it. I mean, there again, they win it, it's no big deal. I should have won anyway. Big time favorite. They lose, whoa. Not only Bama fans, but opposing teams' fans are going to jump on it as well. They're going to take their shots. As Barry thinks and goes, ooh, that would be great.
How can I help in that endeavor? How can I be a part of that? I don't know.
Ralph and Frank and Curtis and Punja and all the old guys back on the rotation, slinging arrows. I kind of miss those guys.
Yeah. Brian Cannon on our River Region Straw Chat line over to the right down there. Yep. He kind of is indicative of some of the people we're talking about. Brian checks in. He says, so glad that Milroe and some others will be gone after today.
Okay, Brian.
Off-season going to be some good conversations going on. There are always good conversations going on in the off-season. Is that really how you should? I mean, in this day and age of transfer portal and, people shoplifting crab legs and people, coming in for a year and then back out again, or saying they're going to enter the transfer portal and then something at the very last moment says, I don't think I'm going to enter the transfer portal.
And, you let me play both ways? Oh, I'm in. Oh, okay.
Milroe went to school at Alabama the whole time. He ain't been to college anywhere else. He's been steadfast. He's been strong. He's been a face of the program, and Brian says, man, I sure am glad when he's out of here. Really? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's time to move on. I tried to, stretch another year of college out myself, and Pop said, nope, enough's enough. 7 years, time to get through.
But it's football season. I got to still get my student tickets.
So
but
it's
also,
time for
Brian,
to move on.
Is this what you're expecting as well? Because Brian also said, I would like to see some younger guys play today. Now,
I think
Alabama,
what-
to their credit, they're not having a lot of opt-outs like you're seeing elsewhere. They're not having they got guys in the transfer portal who ain't playing. Justice Haynes is going to be on the other sideline this morning. But so you're going to have, I guess, more than some of the other teams that have been playing so far, some familiar faces that are out there. But are you going to set Jalen Milroe on the sidelines to close out his college career so the fans can see Ty Simpson?
Well, DeBoer was asked about that yesterday, and his answer was, well, I'm expecting him to play the whole game. Now, we'll see. I doubt he was going to answer that any other way yesterday. But however people put it about Milroe, and there again, been a great face of the program. We've talked about it 100 times. What I think Alabama fans really want to see is a roster and a makeup and a team that really fits their head coach. And I'm not sure this team was like that. I don't think Kalen DeBoer really had any other choice but to play Jalen Milroe. And yeah, he was probably the best option out there. But there again, I'm not sure Jalen Milroe really fit the Kalen DeBoer scheme and philosophy of offensive football. So I think as the things kind of settle in and DeBoer can kind of put the pieces that he wants in there to run the type of offense and defense that he wants, maybe things will kind of settle in a little bit more. But, you know, there again, taking over for Saban, doing what he needed to do. You know, you can't make wholesale changes in a 12-month period. And, you know, it's a slow process. But I think, you know, as years roll on, we'll see more of that.
As we always do on Tuesdays during football season, we begin our second live hour with Travis Reier from Talkin' Tide Reier on YouTube, who joins us here on New Year's Eve. Travis, how we doing?
We're doing well. You know, I'm not a big reveler type, so I don't know if you'll see me out on the wild streets tonight or, you know, risking digits, firing off mortars from the driveway or anything like that. Probably won't make it to the ball drop, but man, some football to talk about on this season, so we like that.
Well, first and foremost, how'd the checkup go? Any cavities today?
Well, you know, that was something I was actually looking forward to today, unlike doing this weekly spot with you guys, the dentist. You know, I was really looking forward to that. And I know for your listeners there in the greater Montgomery area, this segment can be the equivalent of a, you know, root canal. But no, it was good. No cavities.
Nice.
And I think the dental hygienist was just ready to get the heck out of there. You know, so it was kind of like a drive-by cleaning. It wasn't what I would call in depth, you know.
What would you expect today from Alabama in a general sense? We've already had conjecture, you know, get some of the older guys out. I want to see some of the younger guys, you know, Milroe playing, not playing. What are you going to do? You know, how many how do you expect this game to look this morning?
Yeah, you know, I think that's a wish that's being granted to the Michigan fan base because of all the important opt-outs for the Wolverines. So everybody wants to see the young guys, but nobody wants to lose 41-10 either, right? So I think there's a balance to be had there. I think there's actually more pressure on Alabama going into this game because of the situation involving Michigan. I mean, even with all those guys, that's a 6-6, 7-5 kind of football team. So, you know, Alabama relative to Michigan in pretty good shape in terms of player availability. Do I anticipate, say, scripted series for Ty Simpson in this game? That would kind of surprise me. You know, I think there's also some different degrees of command, having the game in control that you take into account, because this Michigan offense is so bad that you could be up 17-3 in the third quarter and feel like you could go ahead and, you know, play some guys. And look, in some areas of this football team, especially on defense, they've had no problem rotating guys in games against Tennessee and, you know, some other games that were certainly not decided until late in the football game. So it's a bit of an unknown. You know, the wide receiver position, you're absolutely going to see some young guys, I would think, because of the number of guys you lost. And then, defensively in the secondary perhaps because of Malachi Moore being out. You want to see a true freshman in Zay Mincy. I think you're going to get that opportunity. It's kind of a mix, I think, going into the game, and then you kind of see how it plays out.
Speaking of wide receivers, I think it's going to be interesting, Travis, to see if Mbakwe gets some reps on offense today.
Yeah, I think with the depth situation, Rico Scott, the true freshman, to go along with Jeremy Bernard, and obviously Ryan Williams, kind of what you would be thinking could be the case. And a good thing about a guy going over to offense in bowl prep is that he did get 15 practices, so that's good. And there's also things you can do that are pretty easy to get the ball in his hands. You can hand it to him on jet sweeps. You can throw it to him out wide maybe in the quick game. Kind of turn some touches for Jalen Mbakwe into the equivalent of like punt returns, where you just get him the ball quick and he's able to sort of do his thing. So, yeah, that's absolutely a storyline that I know a lot of Alabama fans are going to be clued in on going into this one.
Let's get on the record on this. This is going to be Jalen Milroe's last game at Alabama, right?
He's not on the record with that, but it's an assumption that certainly a lot of folks have made. It's sort of the expectation going in and coming out of this game. You kind of look at the quarterback class for this 2025 group, I guess you could call it. Other than Sanders and Ward at the top, there's a lot to be determined. I know Carson Beck has gone ahead and announced he's coming out, but this is a guy with a pretty serious elbow injury making that jump, which I think that in and of itself kind of tells you about the depth of this class. If Carson Beck's kind of looking at it and thinking, you know what, I got a bad UCL, but I'm going to go ahead and come out, because we can say what we want in late December, early January about lack of depth in the quarterback class and things like that. These teams, these NFL teams, they always talk themselves into taking a quarterback in the first round. So I'm still thinking there'll be 4 first-round quarterbacks when it's all said and done. So if you're Jalen Milroe, Carson Beck, once you get beyond those top 2, might not be the worst year to make the jump.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Travis. Based on what it's looking like in that quarterback depth for the NFL draft, I think you gotta take a chance, gotta make a move there. So yeah, that's kind of my feeling. I think this will be the last time Alabama fans see Milroe at the quarterback position. Talking about this Michigan team, we had one of our viewers earlier today, even before we got on the air. Wow, man, this Vegas has got this line moving all over the place. Bama now is 16.5 point favorite. It's been creeping up over the last couple of days. Have there been more opt-outs? Are you hearing anything from Tampa that might make this line move like it has over the last 24 hours?
No, it's just been this sort of consistent flow of Michigan guys opting out. I mean, whether you're talking about that defensive line with Mason Graham, you're talking about the secondary, offensively, a couple running backs, Colston Loveland, the outstanding tight end, is out. I found it interesting that Alex Orji, the backup quarterback, is hitting the portal, but he's hanging around to play in this game, which tells me if I'm Alabama, he's going to play in the game. He's not just around in case you need him, because the game plan for Michigan absolutely should be Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. And Orji can run the football. So Davis Warren, not so much, but I'd run the heck out of Alex Orji today. Try to maintain possession like Oklahoma and Vanderbilt, and also protect a defense that has been hammered by the opt-outs, and get this game shortened up, ugly it up, get it to the fourth quarter, and see if you can sort of Vandy and or Oklahoma this thing.
Yeah, good point.
Let me jump the route on this and pretend like this game is already in the books and the season's already over with. Have you got any general thoughts on what needs to change or what needs to improve before the start of next year, maybe more than anything else?
Yeah, I think, this is a point where if you're Kalen DeBoer, even though it's year one, you need to go ahead and be very, very, very assertive in terms of getting this program where you want it as early as possible. You can't assume anything in today's college football or college athletics. So, if there's any area of this football team where he feels like he needs to upgrade, whether it's personnel, whether it's staff, don't hesitate. Don't panic either. I don't think it's a time for a cleaning of house. I think they still are trying to match up personnel with who they really want to be on both sides of the ball. We're already seeing that in what they're doing in the portal as far as imports. Defensively, on offense, and I think really, though, it starts with the quarterback position for Kalen DeBoer. He needs to figure that out and go dance with what brung him in terms of his offense. He needs a point guy. He needs a distributor. He needs an elite sort of individual at that position and go from there. We saw it with Penix at Washington. I think it needs to probably be more of that for this offense to be exactly what Kalen DeBoer wants it to be. So whether that's Keelan Russell coming in, even as a true freshman, or maybe it is Ty Simpson, assuming, again, that Jalen's on the move to the NFL, it's going to be a quarterback-centric offense. It is. I know, some Alabama fans look at Justice Haynes moving on and all. I mean, if this were the offense from a year ago and it was going to be that offense moving forward, okay, I could kind of get some of that. But it very much starts at quarterback, and then they need to just go from there.
Travis, in your mind, with the transfer portal, we talk about it a lot when it comes to recruiting, and I guess now the transfer window as well, filling needs. Has Kalen DeBoer and this staff filled needs in your mind?
I think so. When you think about offensively what they've sort of backfilled with at the wide receiver position, going to the portal there for a big athletic receiver in Horton from Miami, coming in there to go along with Bernard, you would assume Bernard and Ryan Williams. You think about Mbakwe, Jalen Hale coming off the injury for 2025. You can see some encouraging signs in terms of the kind of receivers. It's another area where I think some fans were like, wow, all these guys. I just don't think a lot of those guys were great fits. I think a couple of those guys, Kendrick Law and Emmanuel Henderson, are outstanding football players. I would want both of those guys on my team. But in an offense like this, it's probably going to be limited opportunities, and it's probably going to be a lot of special teams. So why wouldn't you move on if you're those guys? They're capable of impacting offenses elsewhere. And then defensively, just kind of the way they want to play across the board. They've already gone to the portal for an inside linebacker there, some veteran experience. You assume you're getting Justin Jefferson back. You assume that Jahad Campbell's moving on, Deontay Lawson's moving on. So, you can't afford to hope at that position. You can't hope that one of these young guys is going to be ready. In the transfer portal era, you're going to go get a guy that you think can really help you at that spot.
Yeah, it's a tough deal because you think, okay, I got a young kid, I can develop him. Might take 2 years, and then maybe he can play, or I can get a guy right now. That's what you're going to do.
Yeah, right? And I think they like Okoronkwo, the German product. And I think they've got some other young guys, first-year guys, to go along with him. But, again, Jeremiah Alexander now has some experience at the linebacker position, but they're going to try to stay old. There's positions you're going to try to stay old at in today's college football. Quarterback's going to be certainly chief among those. But then when you think about, playmakers on offense, tackle on offense, and then you get into the defensive side of the ball, like the Mike linebacker position, like, those defensive back spots and edge guys, you're still going to try to stay old at a number of positions.
I think it goes without saying, Travis, that even though Michigan's got a lot of opt-outs and Alabama's a big favorite, and you talked about the Vandy and the Oklahoma game, we kind of touched on that as well. For the offseason, Kalen DeBoer doesn't need to lose this game. If they win it, it's not going to get a lot of hype and a lot of run, but, boy, if they lose it, it's going to linger all spring and summer.
Yeah, it's like we talked about earlier. I mean, they're a 16.5-point favorite. This is almost like Michigan-Ohio State all over again. Obviously, there's pressure of some kind in that sort of rivalry matchup, but really all of the pressure was on Ohio State, and it showed. I don't expect Alabama to play that way today. It is a bowl game. that isn't impactful in terms of the college football playoff or anything like that. But certainly, I think it definitely helps you go into an off season with wins with your first-year coach over teams like Georgia, over teams like LSU, over Auburn, and you put a Michigan up there as well. In terms of brand recognition, before the season, if I told you all those things were going to happen in 2024 for this Alabama team, you probably would have said, well, they're probably playing for a national title with those kind of wins. Well, as we know, it didn't work out that way in Nashville or Norman or Knoxville, but it's an opportunity certainly to have a lot better taste in their mouth going into the offseason.
My final question, Alabama men's basketball is undefeated in December. They go into the new year at 11-2, an absolutely monstrous game coming up at home on Saturday against Oklahoma. Have there been any sort of pleasant surprises or things that you've discovered about this Alabama team to this point that you like?
I would start with LeBaron Philon. I don't know how you don't, given the sort of veteran experience that they already had at the guard position, and then with you talk about staying old at guard with the moves they made in the offseason, and you knew he was a top 20, top 30 type national player coming in, but still, I didn't expect kind of what we've seen from him. SEC Freshman of the Week. We'll see, how that sustains, but, I think defensively, maybe a little bit surprised that they're not a little better than they've been, given the changes they made there and the additions they made there, especially at the rim. But they're still, I think, sort of figuring some things out. It gets really interesting now with SEC play coming up because, Nate played a ton of guys in November and December, and he's pretty much talked about it for a week or two now. That's not going to be the case as much once SEC play rolls around. So how that rotation sort of figures itself out will be interesting to watch coming up here.
Yeah, looking forward to that SEC starting up. Oklahoma will be Alabama's opening SEC opponent. Travis, before we let you go, let everybody know out there watching, listening, how do they find you? I know there's a ton of content out there in so many ways to follow what you got going on. Let our viewers and listeners know.
Yeah, primarily at Ryer on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and you search Travis Ryer, you're going to find Ryer on YouTube. That's our channel. And then, of course, on X at Travis Ryer, TravisReier.
Happy New Year to you, Travis. We appreciate your input all year long and look forward to another great one. Thanks a bunch.
Hey, be safe and look forward to it. Have a great New Year, guys.
You too, buddy. Thank you so much. That's Travis Ryer, Ryer on YouTube. Always appreciate his analysis and expertise. And a couple of things when we get back, I want to kind of touch on the quarterback position as well. I thought was interesting that he talked about that. And yes, Chris, don't you worry.
We're gonna spin the wheel.
Yes,
okay.
The Victoryland 777 topic wheel is loaded up. That will happen in the next 30 minutes as well.
In the final 30 live minutes of 2024 for Longshore and McKnight, presented by Bud Light.
Located just 8 miles north of Alabama's state capital, Capitol Hill features 3 18-hole championship courses. With more than 1,500 acres of golf and nature, the pure magnitude of this facility is amazing and allows each course to be drastically different from the others. Capitol Hill also features an innovative 360-degree driving range, 400 yards in diameter. Known by avid golfers as one of the most beautiful and challenging stops on the trail, Cambrian Ridge in Greenville lies just 40 miles from Montgomery. It is well worth the ride for any golfer looking for 27 holes of jaw-dropping golf. The greens have been redesigned to accommodate the higher green speed associated with our installation of the latest generation of ultra-dwarf Bermuda grass. Both locations offer fully stocked pro shops with all the latest equipment and apparel. Great food and beverages in the clubhouse can be enjoyed both before and after your round. Get your group together and hit the trail. Go to rtjgolf.com.
This isn't going to work. No matter what we say, some people still drive drunk. But we're Budweiser. Giving a damn is what we do. So, If you think it's okay to drive drunk, if you think it's something that's debatable, or you just simply don't care, this bud is not for you. Give a damn. Don't drive drunk. Enjoy responsibly. Budweiser Beer, Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
Hey, folks, you got to take advantage of the incredible holiday savings at Stivers Ford in Montgomery, where they sell America's best-selling truck for 50 years in a row, the F-150. And you can get an F-150 at 1.9% APR for 60 months or up to $15,000 off MSRP and no payments for 90 days. Hundreds to choose from. Your F-150 is on the lot right now. Also, F-150 Lightnings, $15,000 off MSRP and 0% APR for 72 months. What about the stylish Ford Bronco? Up to $10,000 off MSRP, starting as low as $34,990. And it started it all with the Ford Explorer. You can get one for up to $8,000 off MSRP, as low as $33,900 and 1.9% APR for 66 months. Folks, Stivers Ford is loaded with cars, trucks, and SUVs priced to sell. Stivers Ford, 4000 Eastern Boulevard in Montgomery, where price sells cars. Okay, welcome back in, everybody. About 20 minutes past the hour here on this Tuesday, the last day of 2024. Travis Reier just joining us here on the program on our City of Montgomery guest hotline. Thought it was interesting. Several things, obviously, what Travis had to say, but particularly at quarterback. And I've kind of felt this way as well. I kind of touched on it earlier this morning. Getting Kalen DeBoer's fit. You know, he mentioned Michael Penix. Is that what Alabama needs to be successful under Kalen DeBoer? Is Keelan Russell coming in from Texas? Is that going to be the guy that's going to show Alabama fans what a Kalen DeBoer team can really look like? I wonder about that. Getting the pieces that Kalen DeBoer needs.
In a broad sense, he is not Nick Saban. We were talking before about how Bama fans are spoiled because they've been used to Tua and Bryce. Bob from Pike Road points out those guys didn't win natties as starters. Give him, some of the other guys that did. If you're comparing Jalen Milroe to two NFL starters right now, that's tough. Same thing with DeBoer. Comparing him to Saban, don't do that. Don't do that. That guy was the best college football coach I've ever seen. And that's unfair to DeBoer. That's just in perception. In terms of football, John, he's different. Football under DeBoer is not going to look exactly like football was under Saban. They're not diametrically opposed, but they're different, and they should be. So if he does not, and Travis's point was he does not need to spend time making decisions and doing things relative to how that'll play to the Alabama fan base, or would Saban do it this way?
Yeah.
He needs to get the pieces to run what he believes in and what his coaching staff is prepared to teach and all that. That may be the case at quarterback. That's definitely the case elsewhere. He does not need to panic, according to Travis, but he does need to make moves associated with what he thinks is best for the program,
And
not what everybody else thinks.
And, Barry, Rodney kind of said something similar a week or so ago. Rodney Orr, the Tider Insider, about, it's time to start putting your fingerprints on this program, making moves and adjustments that you think will be positive and successful in the future. And obviously quarterback is the biggest piece. And I think it's going to be very, very interesting who will be taking the snaps. Will it be a guy like Ty Simpson? I just find it hard for a true freshman to step right in and start playing, but it's been done before. It's going to be an interesting offseason. But first things first, there's a game today, right? Yes. If you're listening and watching live, there's a game today and a little over 3 hours from now. And there again, it puts Kalen DeBoer on a positive, path, winning it. I mean, Barry, if they lose today and they're a 16-point favorite against a team that's had a ton of opt-outs, whoa.
Here's the vibe from TigerInsider.com open forum. Game is meaningless. Game is worthless. How
about the link Milrose transferring to Miami? Why would he do that? I mean, we just talked with Travis about being the third, fourth quarterback taken in the draft.
Right. And we are not yet, it feels like it, but we are not yet at the point where you can offer him money to stay at Alabama that rivals the money he would make as a second-round draft choice as a quarterback in the NFL. Not even close.
As tight as NIL money seems to be in Tuscaloosa, I don't think that would be a very good investment.
I wonder, let me backtrack. James Franklin, the Penn State coach, was asked this yesterday in preparation for tonight's quarterfinal game about the NIL, what everybody's getting. He said, I really don't know. He says, we don't track a lot of that. We've got people who do it. I don't know that I believe him on that. He says, it's so different for everybody else and everybody gets different stuff and all that. But I'm hearing, and there was another podcast with our buddy Neil McCready, and McCready says that the number out there on the open market that he's hearing for Auburn to have secured Jackson Arnold was $2.5 million for 1 year. I won't, and I don't remember the name of the podcast. I want to give him credit. I can't think of it.
I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was our friend Neil McCready.
McCready's podcast. Yeah, that's what I was saying. With AJ McCarron, and it was somebody else. And he was saying, I hear that the idea out there for Jackson Arnold was $2.5 million. And I thought AJ McCarron was going to pop a blood vessel. He said, I got to come back. I got to come back like, Eli Manning did and like Baker Mayfield did, wear a wig and call myself TJ McCammon or something like that. He says, at some point, don't you have to, as a quarterback, have to be able to throw the football and all this kind of stuff? So all that to say, if Jackson Arnold is getting $2.5 million to come to Auburn, what do you pay Ty Simpson, who has paid his dues, who has been patient, who has been a company guy, who has been faithful and loyal and clean and brave and thrifty and kind and reverent and all the things the Boy Scouts are? It's his time. But, man, you also got to get this number one high school recruit out of the state of Texas. Boy, it sure would be good to get him. And he's got everybody after him. And you're paying a lot for him. If Jackson Arnold is getting $2.5 million to come to Auburn, what does an unproven high school quarterback get? What does a 3-year backup quarterback who finally is ascending to the job, what do they get? As opposed to what Milroe is getting
first. I think Ty Simpson's in a difficult spot. There's no film on him. I mean, there's really nothing for anybody to evaluate him as a college player. So A, he's got that working against him. B, is there another school that's interested in Ty Simpson that is willing to pay him? Because I think he would have to go back to the coaches and say, hey, Michigan State or whomever is offering me $1 million. What are you going to give me? So he's got to have a little leverage, a little negotiating power there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Ty Simpson has it. Now for the high school kid, whoa, I got every school in America coming after me. What are you going to pay me?
What am I bid? Yeah.
So I think Ty Simpson's in a tough spot.
it's still a possibility. The transfer portal is cloudy. The transfer portal officially closed on December the 28th, which was Saturday. It officially closed on Saturday, meaning you had to have your paperwork in by Saturday. They still have to process the paperwork and put your name up before you can actually get contacted. But if your team is playing in a bowl game that is played after the deadline, you've got 5 days after your bowl game, rather than the 28th, to get your name in. And if you're a graduate, you can enter the portal anytime you want to. And so, I mean, Ty Simpson's probably close to graduation if he hasn't already. So he can do it if he wants to, even if it's just to see what his market value is, especially if the exit interview he gets from his coaches at the end of the year is like, hey man, we got this freshman kid, man. I'm telling you, he is a player. He's going to be coming. Do you cut and run then and try, somewhere else?
And see, my thing there, Barry, have these kids not had enough time to figure this out already? I don't care if you're going to a bowl game or not. Why do you need 5 more days? Have you not already figured it out? I'm coming or I'm going. I think they've got to narrow this window. I think it's way too long. Give them, do you need more than 3 or 4 days? I mean, you should have already figured it out that, this just isn't the place for me. I need to move on. I mean, why do they need that month so maybe people can get in these kids' ears?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. If John is putting his cherished driver on Facebook Marketplace and he puts it there for 1 day and somebody says, I'll give you $100 for it. John says, sold. No, he's not doing that. He's saying, well, you got this one right here. It's nice. It's, it's giving me 25 extra yards off the tee. What am I bid here? I've already got a bid for 100. Do I hear 150? They're taking bids during that thing.
Well, see, that's another problem.
I got this from Oklahoma. And I say they've got uncles or fathers or brothers or whoever who's helping to orchestrate all this. And some of them are saying, hey, I've got 1.1 million offered from this time. Well, my sources say they're only offering you 75,000.
Yeah. See, I don't think you should give them that much time. You better, you got an offer to make, boom, you better get it done. It was kind of like, Winthorpe and Reggie and Billy Ray Valentine in the pit. I mean, you only got so much time before that clock runs out. And you're taking as many orders as you can get. And once the bell sounds, it's over.
That's right. Yeah. It ain't nothing like, when the transfer portal is done and all these guys is signed, there ain't no Mortimer Duke saying, turn those machines back on. No, it's done.
It is over. So, there again, to me, that just opens up, a part of the transfer portal that most people say they don't want and they don't like. We don't want other teams, meddling. That's not what amateur athletics is about. Okay, well, if they meddle for 3 days, I guess if you can limit it, why let them meddle for 30? Just let them meddle for 3 and get it over with. Have this just big blowout, sell for 3 days. And if you don't get a taker or you don't want to move on, then be it.
Are you calling for a healthy selfie sale in college football?
That's exactly what I'm saying. If you're going to transfer, this is the day you can do it. And if not, boom, done.
Victoryland 777, our topic wheel. Let's hit it here before we go to break and fire it up.
Let's get to a topic before let's do it. See what's happening here. Oh, okay. And it's Blue Bloods in the blue towel. I wonder how that worked out. That's interesting.
Do you think that was just a coincidence, please?
So I don't want to, say this in my uppity, cachet panache voice, but
you've already.
Or is there any other bowl game out there? Not college football playoff games, because I would probably say Notre Dame, Georgia's a blue blood matchup. I'm not sure I'd go as far as Ohio State, Oregon, because the Ducks are kind of a newbie. Obviously, Texas Arizona State's not one. But is there any other matchup out there in the bowl season that is bluer in blue blood than Bama and Michigan? And it's played in about 2.5 hours?
I still remember that song by John Lennon after he left the Beatles. Whatever gets you through. Well, we're the best of the non-college football playoff games. Other teams that have won national
better
championships.
than some of the playoff games. But
well, yeah, you're going to be tracking, and I'm trying to find a source that can give me the quickest college football ratings, so I can have them in time for Thursday. Between the Alabama-Michigan game and, say,
Boise and
tonight's
Penn State.
Boise-Penn State game.
Yeah, I'll be curious.
But in terms of schools that have won national championships playing against each other remaining, there are none. As a matter of fact, I don't think there has been a game with teams that have won. BYU and Colorado in the Alamo Bowl. BYU won it in '84 when their biggest win was against 8-4 Air Force, and Colorado won a half championship in 1990. Which
I don't want to get on the Indiana thing again, but it kind of sounds like the Hoosiers and BYU not having big wins.
I think that's about it.
So, Southern Cal and Texas A&M, those blue bloods. I don't consider really A&M. How does Southern Cal open and close their season by beating an SEC team? Southern Cal was terrible this year.
They were
like
bad.
500.
They were bad. They, the big bad SEC is fallible. They are human.
So I'm going
because they got a win over LSU to start and a win over A&M to finish, and in between they were average at best.
I'm just scanning, and I get it.
Yeah,
that Michigan has had a tough year, but that they're a well-known, tradition-rich, blue blood program,
which matters more to John than they had a rough year. I know
Yep.
they've not been good, but they're tradition-rich. Okay.
All right, let me. Okay, would Alabama fans rather be playing Michigan today, or Baylor, or Duke?
Louisville. Oh, no, they played Louisville in a bowl game. Didn't go well.
Well, they
the
actually
Browning
played them.
game.
You know, Barry, that is so. They have played since then. They played in
34 years ago. Yeah.
They played in Orlando to open the season up one year. Alabama, Louisville in a neutral site game. How do we forget? We immediately go back to the Fiasco Bowl when they were down 21-0 before.
I have to remind you that Alabama played Western Kentucky this year.
Oh yeah, they did. So, Bama fan, would you rather be playing Louisville, Baylor? Let me think Iowa, or would you rather play Michigan? I think Bama fans thinking, I want all of Michigan I can get. I know they're 500 or 7.
And we played them last year in a bowl game and lost. They're the defending national champion. That might have something to do with it.
I just think that it's Michigan, and I got to tell you, is Michigan 6-6? What is their record?
7-5.
7-5. Okay.
Yeah. With a win over Ohio State.
I mean, it's like if you're looking at your NFL schedule and you're thinking, are we playing the Titans? Or are we playing the Cowboys?
This absolutely is like me listening to Sanskrit or Latin or Pig Latin when John taught. The idea is, if you listen closely, is that I don't care if it's a good football team. I don't care if they play well. I don't care if they've got talent or they've been well coached or they've had a terrific year. What they've achieved does not matter.
I think my thing is, I want to beat the name. I want to beat the brand.
This is
I want to beat the logo.
It doesn't matter. This is the same thing about putting them in the playoff. It doesn't matter. I mean, Indiana won 11 games. So what? They're Indiana. The accomplishments don't matter. It's not the substance. It's the style that
I
we're
don't know
after.
what
America
year
was
it
not built
was.
on style.
I don't know what year it was, but
Oh.
Bama fan, did it really chap their tail when Utah beat them in the Sugar Bowl? They didn't think another thing about it. Utah, who cares? Who knows about them anyway? Big deal. Didn't want to play in the game in the first place. So what? And but if it had been Notre Dame, then it'd have been a little bit. Well, Notre Dame was like, man, I don't know, 8-4 that year. Don't matter. Still
More
wanna
than
play 'em.
anything else, I respect John for this. No. I respect Alabama fan for this more than anything else. Out of all the schools in the country that I have seen, Alabama is the only school that can lose a bowl game because they didn't care, because the team was not equal to them in terms of panache, and they'll brag about it.
Yeah.
Bama
Barry,
fans will not go to a bowl game because it's only Utah or it's only whomever, because it's only them. And I ain't going to that game. Utah, you kidding me? I'm glad we lost that game. I'm glad we didn't go.
Yeah.
They're beneath us. Never
I
seen
will
another
say
program
this.
that can do that.
When Alabama played Kansas State in the Sugar Bowl, a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
And Bryce and Will Anderson elected to play, which I thought that was a great move on their part.
I did too.
And I wasn't really that interested in it, but the boys wanted to go. I said, okay, we'll go to the Sugar Bowl. They wanted to see it. So I know they wanted to see them win. I get it. Me, on the other hand, I said, when's that beer line open up? Oh, great. Let's go. And Kansas State jumped out to like a 10-point lead in
10-0 early. Yep.
Yeah. And, I'm sitting there going, really? Is there anything to be concerned about here? Did I think at that point Kansas State was going to win the game? No. And what I really enjoyed about that game more than anything is finally Bryce kind of went, you know what? Enough of this fooling around. Let's get down to business. And it was a blowout. I mean, Kansas State gets you a 10-point lead. Bama comes back like ding, doing, ding. It was like playing in the backyard. And I'm thinking, this is exactly what I was expecting.
So if John did not have two young, bright-eyed, innocent young men who wanted to go watch Alabama play in a football game in the postseason, John would have said, why? Why? Against Kansas State? Now, if it's Southern Cal, okay. Actually, in the world of Longshore, if it's about 6 teams,
yeah,
he's okay. He's all up and in it.
I'm good.
But I'm telling you, if Boise State had gone 14-0, beaten every team by 35, Ashton Jeanty runs for 2,700 yards, and they play Alabama, Boise State.
I got to tell you, I haven't admitted this yet, Mary, to my wife, but she's already asked me about tomorrow night. What are your plans? What are you thinking? What do you got on the docket? And she's scheming. She's thinking 7:45, I'm going to be in front of that TV. And when I mean in front of it, she likes to stand in front of it, watching Georgia and Notre Dame.
Pace back and forth. And screen, she'll turn the TV and say, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Definitely. Yes. And I walk out of the rooms, I'll hear this, go Dogs, woo, 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 woo. And I'm thinking, oh, geez. So, I'm preparing myself for that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what's going to be tough? It's not going to be tough watching Georgia. It's going to be tough watching Georgia play Notre Dame. And that's what's going to be tough. I'm thinking, whoa. Wait a minute. They're playing Notre Dame? I'm still having a hard time coming to grips with that.
All right. Well, let's take a break and we'll spin to close out 2024. It's coming up. In association with Yellowhammer News, it's Longshore and McKnight, presented by Bud Light.
The Destin Connection Seafood Market offers the freshest seafood direct from the Gulf of Mexico with deliveries daily. Snapper, grouper, pompano, flounder, copia, along with medium, large, and jumbo shrimp, hand-picked crab meat, and chucked oysters. They can even cook your order for easy, quick pickup. The Destin Connection can make a po' boy with any of their seafood items that folks in New Orleans rave about. Go by and see them at 3750 Norman Bridge Road or call 288-4272 for pickup orders.
In sports, if you think joy only happens after you win, think again. Look at the world's most successful athletes like Serena Williams, Brooks Koepka, and Alex Morgan. They don't spend all their days grinding away. They take time to enjoy themselves, like getting together with friends over a Michelob Ultra, because they know that happiness is the key to winning, and that joy is the whole game, not just the end game. Michelob Ultra. 95 calories, 2.6 grams of carbs. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Enjoy responsibly. AB Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Dixie Electric Plumbing and Air rallies for you. No matter the problem, Dixie will tackle it. Their licensed and trusted electricians, plumbers, air and garage door technicians are ready to win for you. From toilets to garbage disposals, circuit breakers to HVAC systems, Dixie never fumbles. Don't throw away your hard-earned money on second-string contracting companies. Score big with Dixie. After all, they are your biggest fan. Visit calldixie.com or dial them up locally at 262-2946. Okay, about 15 minutes to the top of the hour. A couple of questions to be answered before we spin the wheel again. John, I do not know what game food will be on tap for tomorrow night. Since it's such a late kick, I have to think dinner will already be consumed by the time the Georgia game kicks, but I'll need to think about that. I'm not real sure.
Well,
I know one thing, Barry, I'm having the collard greens and the black-eyed peas tomorrow.
Yep, my wife is fixing that. She fixes that every year, and she's phenomenal. Unfortunately, I will not be partaking in it. I will be ringing in the new year in a hotel room in Boone, North Carolina as of tonight.
What's the temp up there in Boone?
It's supposed to be the high tomorrow on New Year's Day in Boone, North Carolina is going to be 34, the high. And then we go to Huntington, West Virginia. Troy men's basketball does and plays at Marshall on Saturday. The high there is supposed to be 29. So, yikes.
Kevin asked this question. I'd like to get your thoughts on it, Barry. I've got an opinion. He said, which was a better win, Bama beating Georgia or Michigan beating Ohio State?
I think Michigan, Ohio State was a bigger upset.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think that was a bigger shocker. And there was never really a time when Ohio State looked close. Everybody was waiting for Ohio State to like you said about Bryce. Okay, enough of that foolishness. And they never did. Alabama had the big lead. That first half I saw from them, I'm thinking, why didn't they do that the rest of the year? Against a really good team. So anyway, I would say the bigger win was Michigan beating Ohio State.
And one of the things that I thought's interesting, we talked about the talk of what Jackson Arnold cost Auburn, $2.5 million. That's one of the things floating out there.
Yeah.
What do they expect for that money? What does Auburn expect? Somebody asked that on the chat line. I mean, are they thinking 10 wins, 8-4, 9-3? What is a good return on that investment?
I would say 10 wins. I would say 10. And it's not just on him. What I like is that, again, if that's correct, who no way of knowing, $2.5 million for Jackson Arnold, but they also got 2 good tackles. They've got a couple of wide receivers instead of just, Keontae Lambert-Smith and Cam Coleman and blah, blah, blah. They've added some pieces around him that honestly he didn't have at Oklahoma. So they spent that money on him. And evidently they also had a good bit of money to spend on other stuff to help out. So it's not just, he's not on the clock for 10 wins himself. I think Auburn has invested in some other guys. If it's not a 10-win team next year for Auburn, I mean, Missouri was a 10-win team this year, and they had some flaws. If it's not a 10-win team next year for Auburn, there will be disappointment. I will be disappointed.
A team that has not won more than 7 games in the last 4 seasons?
Have not won more than 6 games.
6 games in the last 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Jumping to a 10-win season next year with a schedule that is basically the same as it was last year, but flip-flopping home and away.
Some of the tough games are at home.
Yeah. 10 might be a little ambitious. I mean, I said, here it is very, very early, and I might have said it a week or 2 ago. I mean, 8-4 seems realistic. And I know you say that every year, but it does kind of seem like 8-4 is what I'm looking at. But I got a long time before I've got to really make a final prediction on that. 10 right now,
Yeah,
though,
we got time.
seems a little.
I'm not predicting 10 wins, but I'm saying for the Auburn fans, anything less than 10, you're like, man, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we getting for the money we're
Okay, how about this? 10 wins, but they lose to Bama and Georgia. Yeah. Yeah. We'll think about that and spin the wheel. What do you think?
Yeah, spin the wheel.
Okay, spin the wheel, Gurn. Let's see what we got left here on the Victoryland 777 topic wheel, where you can be a winner too. Exit 22 off I-85 Shorter, Alabama. Man, last night, Barry, Monday night football. I got to tell you, when I'm going to doubt the Detroit Lions and they come back and prove me wrong, this is a really good football team, and Detroit has been so bad for so long. But they're in a division with the Minnesota Vikings that have the same record as they do.
Yes, both of them are in the playoffs.
Yeah, if Detroit's in any other division, they're going to buy a home field throughout the playoff.
The NFC North used to be so overrated. Now it is really good. You got 4 teams in the division. Minnesota's really good. Detroit's really good. And Green Bay's pretty good. Of course, Chicago's terrible. The Lions end up winning it 40-34. Look, I love Brock Purdy. I love his story. I think he's a good quarterback. He came like he's the last player drafted and all that. He threw 2 massive interceptions in that game that really cost him. I hate it for him. But yeah, the 49ers are bad. I think they're 6-10 right now. Big one coming up next week between Detroit and Minnesota to see who gets the number 1 NFC seed. That's going to be this coming Sunday night.
That's going to be a good one. But Barry, that's probably one of the few good ones because it's the last week of the regular season in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken, if I have my weeks correct. And there's going to be a lot of games that just not going to be very exciting.
Wait a minute.
I know it. I hear you. Now, if you got a little coin on the game, it might be exciting, but it's hard to really handicap some of these NFL games because you're not real sure. Like Cleveland and Baltimore's. Baltimore's an 18-point favorite. I mean, that's like a 40-point favorite in college. If you're laying 18 in the NFL, I don't think I've ever seen a line that high. 18?
Can you double check this one from me? Sunday afternoon, 3:25, Chiefs and Broncos. Chiefs are 15-1. Broncos are 9-7. I've got Denver as a 10-point favorite. No,
is Patrick Mahomes not playing?
Maybe nobody's playing for the Chiefs. They're sitting everybody out or something.
Tampa
Bay is a 13-point home favorite against the Saints. Sorry. Against the Saints.
It's tough. Yeah. Anyway. We're looking to next year.
Let's move on. Yes.
But there's some games you got to be. It's tough. But that the Minnesota Detroit game is going to be a doozy. But that's really the only good one in.
Yeah. Robbie
week
says
17.
There are still 3 division titles and 2 playoff spots still on the line. Yeah.
Hey, Robbie,
spots in the final week.
Robbie, did you send me that information so I can tell you where you are on our bowl prediction
contest? John's been trying to help you. He's
trying to help you, Robbie.
You've been driving him. He's been trying. Anyway, okay.
Back to the wheel. Spin it again. Let's spin it again.
I think we may get.
Hey, Dennis Mitchell on the chat line today. Robbie and Dennis back to back. Oh, wow. Love it. Okay, college football playoff games. There's one tonight, and I'm not predicting this. I'm just curious. Does the Bama-Michigan game have better ratings than the Penn State-Boise game? I'm just curious. I'm just wanting to know when that comes out.
I say no. I say Bama-Michigan is 11 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. But, Bear, I got to tell you, I'm not hanging around watching Penn State and Boise. I'm ringing in the new year. I'm tapping the champagne glass and blowing the party favor and bringing
He's
in
already got the lampshade on his head.
Yeah.
you
I'm
know.
not sitting around watching
Mhm.
Boise and Penn State on New Year's Eve. Now, tomorrow, I might be, a little slow and watching some college football all day tomorrow because it's college football playoff action.
Mhm.
And I'm more
John's
interested
going to
in
be
the game.
sitting by that time. He's going to be on the coffee table.
Oh,
He'll
yeah.
have his tie whipping around his head. He's going to be singing "Wet Willie" or something like that.
Sure.
Pablo Cruz or something at the top of his lungs. He ain't paying attention to any college football quarter.
Yeah.
Sure, he's in the sports media, but no. Love will find a way's a great
It
song,
will.
and people deserve to hear John sing it at the top of his lungs.
Yeah,
That's
no doubt.
what's important.
You better believe it. We're going to be
Mhm.
singing Jay Ferguson Shakedown Cruise. You kidding me?
Yeah.
But even Texas, Arizona State, I'm not sure I'm going to, make my lunch plans around that. But the other two, Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Notre Dame, must see.
Well,
I'll be interested to see what-
honey, can you move over a little bit to
Yeah,
the left?
just a tad.
Yeah, I can't.
Notre Dame, Georgia will be a ratings boom.
Ain't no
That
doubt.
will be huge.
It would be a chance for Notre Dame to win the first game in their history against Georgia. Notre Dame is 0-3. I remember the Sugar Bowl game on January 1st, 1981, when Georgia beat Notre Dame. Herschel had a huge day to cap off his freshman year. But they played since. I remember when Georgia went to Notre Dame in 2017 and beat the Irish 20-19. That was really kind of the start of the Jake Fromm national championship run team. Everybody's like, whoa, Georgia, I see you. And then Georgia came down to Athens 2 years later. Notre Dame came down to Athens 2 years later, and Georgia beat them there. They're 0-3 against the Dogs.
Tobias has a great question. Can Milroe throw a TD pass versus his first P4 team since Missouri? Tobias always coming with some great questions.
That's good stuff.
Chris Bammer is freaking out. And also, Dennis says, keep smiling from Wet Willie.
Keep on smiling in the rain.
Yeah. Dennis, good pull there. All right, spin the wheel, Gurn. Chris is getting frantic. All right, two more to go. Let's see what we got left as we spin again, and it lands on other. You see how that's titled, Barry, in quotations?
Why has it got quotations around it? Because John says other bowl games. Yes.
So I'm glad we got to the Blue Blood matchup, which kicks off in a little more than 2 hours from now.
Yeah, but
these other bowl games is besides Robbie from Greenville, who's going to be watching Penn State Boise tonight. Is there really any other college bowl game that you got to be sitting around going, man, I can't miss this one?
Well, you might have to use your clicker because there's going to be a lot of conflicts. Alabama, Michigan starts it off at 11 o'clock. Louisville and Washington in the Sun Bowl at 1 on CBS. The Citrus Bowl at 2 on ABC. South Carolina is an 8.5-point favorite against Illinois, a chance for one of those teams to get to 10 wins. 2:30 on ESPN, it's Baylor versus LSU in the Texas Bowl. Baylor's favored in that game. And, of course, the college football playoff quarterfinal tonight. It'll be Penn State and Boise State from Glendale, Arizona. 6:30 on ESPN to determine who goes to the semifinals. Penn State favored by 11 against the number 3 national seed.
See, Herb Street, you might be wrong to something. Just saying. All right, what's the last category on the Victorland 777 topic wheel? I believe it might be SEC hardwood. Barry, finally, after a great, I got to spin it to make it official. It's kind of like that extra point in NFL games. You mentioned after a great non-conference slate for both Auburn and Alabama, now the SEC slate starts. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Daniel says you guys should carry the show up to the beginning of the Alabama-Michigan game today. Just saying. I got a bus to catch. There is SEC basketball today, if you want to call it that. 1 o'clock, Kentucky versus Brown and Tennessee versus Norfolk State. The SEC schedule begins on Saturday. Number 12,
Oh,
Oklahoma is 13-0. They go to number 5, Alabama at 5
Is
o'clock.
Oklahoma beating any? I mean, if they played anybody, you say 13-0. What was their toughest game?
Oh, you're
I
asking
got to look
wrong.
that up. I'm thinking,
I
wait
do
a
know
minute.
this. The starting
be
point
smoke
guard
and
for
mirrors.
Oklahoma, as our buddy Jason Jones pointed out, is actually a Troy transfer from Montgomery named Duke
wow.
Miles, who's averaging about 13 points a game. Also, number 2, Auburn playing at home at 3 on Saturday against an 11-2 Missouri team. 3 o'clock, that one is on the SEC network as well.
Okay, so Barry's traveling up to Boone, North Carolina, up in the is it Appalachian or Appalachian?
It's Appalachian State. It's a 2-game trip. So we're leaving out this afternoon. I'll actually be back on Sunday. So it is a long trip.
Yeah.
And we'll have it on the radio, both games, Thursday night and then Saturday afternoon.
Perfect, man. Going to be some great basketball on the road for the Trojans, and Barry will have the call for those games for you to check out. Also, Bama, Michigan in 2 hours. No, we can't lead up to, I guess we got to make room for the Crimson Tide Sports Network or something. Who knows? But more than anything, Barry and I launched this format on August the 16th. And here it is, the last day of 2024. We cannot thank you enough for your support, your subscriptions, your likes. I'm telling you, folks, the new platform has really grown, and we're very excited about it. We could not do it without you.
When we look back on this years from now, people are going to say, man, can you believe Longshore and McKnight, how this thing absolutely blew up in 2025? Oh, my gosh, the year those guys had, forget it. I ain't never seen anything like it. That's what's in store. We appreciate all of you. Tell your friends. Watch all of the different platforms and listen. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe. We look forward to a great 2025 with you, and we appreciate it. In conjunction with Yellowhammer News, it's Longshore and McKnight, presented by Bud Light.